So one of the big discussions at the moment is really around plastics and what to do with them. We've been using them, well, since 1960s on a large scale, but plastics have actually been around for about 100 years. And because I guess the mass production and the acceptance of plastic over the last 50 years, it's resulted in huge waste problems. But I think it's firstly understanding why that is the case. So plastics themselves are polymers, synthetic polymers. So basically they're developed through combining or using a base, an oil base, which is fossil fuels, and then combining those with different types of chemicals to form different types of plastics. The problem with synthetically combining and making up plastics is, at the end of the day, you're creating something that's not natural, and there's no way in which nature can naturally biodegrade that down. It's only through sunlight that plastic degrades. So nature hasn't found a way just yet to get rid of plastic, so it stays around forever. And that's the problem, because we've used so much plastic, we're finding it everywhere now, particularly in our oceans. Think of it this way: if you have zooplankton that consume microplastics, that zooplankton's then eaten by some tommies or some smaller fish that are then eaten by larger fish. All throughout the food chain, they're being eaten and consuming plastics, those toxins, which then we put on a dinner plate and we eat. So apart from the fact that, we're eating fish and consuming, we're also consuming toxins. So that's both bad, and there's no way of getting around that. So unfortunately, right now, you're more than likely have ingested plastic. And when you think about plastics themselves and how they're composed, that combination of chemicals and toxins, dioxins, which are quite deadly, are forming, all these different types of plastics. And you'll probably see on your wrappers, when you're purchasing goods that are wrapped in plastic, they probably have a type of plastic outlined on the container itself, saying, P1, P2, P3. That really gives you a good understanding of the type of plastic and the dioxins that contain in there. The worst thing you can probably do is burn plastic and release those dioxin in the atmosphere, because that's just a whole bunch of pollution that you really don't want to be breathing in. And unfortunately, with a lot of waste disposal, not so much in Australia, because we've had to export our rubbish, which we can't do anymore. We need to actually find a solution, which is good. But in India, they burnt a lot of their plastic rubbish, and they've had huge health issues over Mumbai at times, particularly when the breeze and weather patterns blow over the city itself. You've got a whole bunch of smog from that burnt plastic going over the city. That's just disaster. So it's really one thing to think that we're recycling these materials, when at the end of the day, let's just stay away from it altogether. So really, this is the reason why plastics isn't good, because you're ingesting something that's toxic. It doesn't go away, it's bad for the environment. There's too much of it, we don't know what to do with it. What's the solution? Well, reduce your plastic to zero. Find alternative ways in which you're shopping, storing food, all those types of things. You can use glass jars that have already been used, even plastic containers that have already been used. Reuse them again, just to reduce that plastic. Ultimately, we want to get away from plastic. You may have heard of bioplastics. So basically they're polymers that are made out of plant material. So that can be done as well. Typically you find a lot of bioplastics that have been made out of cornstarch. So you can do that, that's an option as well. Be careful with purchasing those products, particularly with plastic bags, and understand that bioplastics, they biodegrade, but they do take some time as well. So even when you're buying some disposable plastic bags, doggy bags, or even those plastic bags that they have, just be mindful that if that does go out in the ocean, it does take, up to 6 months to biodegrade. So if a turtle or any other fish consumes that plastic, they still will be affected, potentially die. So there's no guarantee there. That's why they have commercial composting facilities to get rid of or properly biodegrade those materials. I think there's around about 9 or 10 in Australia right now, so there's not that many. So just be mindful of that if you do purchase bioplastics. So really, as you can see, there's a bit of a large-scale problem in terms of magnitude. We're talking in the billions of tons of plastic that's now in our oceans. And you would have, if you're following this type of stuff, you would have seen that quote in terms of in 2049, it's predicted that there'll be no fish in the ocean, but also plastic will outweigh marine life. That's a pretty scary number. So all in all, understand the problem, ways in which you can reduce the impacts yourself. Just takes a little bit of effort. One person can do big things if they pass on the knowledge to other people as well.